Welcome back to Ireland AM. The time is now 7:34, and here on the show we always want to talk about what matters to you. That is exactly why you're here. If there's any issue that affects you, please get in contact, because we received a letter yesterday from a lady who has lived in County Leitrim for the last 50 years. She's raised 4 children, 3 of whom have emigrated, and 1 is now living in Sligo, and she finds herself extremely isolated, mainly because of the lack of public transport. So we'd like to share a few lines from this letter. I read it yesterday and I started bawling, crying. She says, "I'm stuck in my house 6 out of 7 days every week. My son comes from Sligo 1 day a week to drive me to do my weekly shop. With no corner shop nearby, I freeze basics like bread and milk. My minor road takes lorries and tractors. Surely it could take a local bus."
She goes on to say, "I envy city people. They complain about missing a bus. In rural County Leitrim, we'd be grateful to have one. I cry from loneliness almost every day. My kids call often but won't return to Ireland because of housing costs, and poor rural transport kept them away. The nearest large town to me is Longford. I would love to visit just 1 day per week. It's not a lot to ask."
Joining us this morning to discuss is Aisling O'Rourke, the communications coach and Professor of Transport at Trinity College, Brian Caulfield. Thank you so much for joining us here. On a human level, I swear to God, Aisling, I burst into tears when I read the whole letter yesterday.
Well, just to that woman who wrote that letter, that takes real courage to sit down and put that into writing, because there'll be a lot of people feeling that way and who don't have the capacity to really put it into words, because that's hard. That's really hard. But she's not alone. You know, the public transport system, where it is, and especially the local link services, where it works, it's amazing. But the problem is that it's piecemeal. It's not in every county as efficiently as it might be. Like when I got the call yesterday to do this piece with you, I did a straw poll and did a ring around across the Midlands, because I'm from Tullamore in County Offaly. We have always been lucky in that we have a good train service. But like, even on a simple thing, you want to go out for a night in Galway or Dublin, like the last train to Tullamore from Dublin is at 8:30 in the evening. Now, it used to be 7, if so, you know, you were pushing it. We got that extra hour. But like, you know, you talk to some people who have the local link services and it's fantastic. They can go into their local town, have a few drinks on a night out and get home safely, and that's wonderful, but wouldn't be able to rely on it for Monday to Friday commuting services. And then you go to another county in the Midlands where there isn't a service, and they are another locality where they couldn't possibly do a night out because it doesn't operate late at night. And it's that ad hoc nature of it that makes it challenging.
Listen, we offered the Minister for Transport to come in and talk to us as well, Darragh O'Brien. We wanted to hear from him about the traffic, the infrastructure out there. Of course, we have not heard back from the Minister. We would love to discuss things like this with the people at the very top of this, because, Brian, this lady talks about she envies city people. They complain about missing a bus. In rural County Leitrim, we would be glad to just have one. How bad is the system for transport in rural Ireland?
So once you get outside the cities, it's definitely challenging to provide the kind of public transport that people deserve. And as you said, it's not an awful lot to ask for one bus service a day to bring that lady into Longford. When you look outside, 35% of our population live in rural parts. And when you go into that area, the point that you made in the letter was about a local shop. There's only 38% of people in rural Ireland that are 50-minute walk away from a local shop. So that then causes all of these knock-on impacts, like the day-to-day conversations that lady would have with her local community. Those kind of things aren't happening, and it's kind of the hidden cost that we don't hear about an awful lot because it can't go into a spreadsheet.
We talk about the loneliness pandemic, and that Ireland, we're the loneliest nation in the EU, and this woman has articulated it perfectly. She is stuck in her house 1 day a week. Her son comes to her. Brian, what is the actual situation when it comes to local link across? Is there a framework for how it should be and how often it should be? Because I spend a lot of time in Kerry and it's incredible. Like, talking to older people who use the local link down there, they're just like, yeah, you know, using it to go into town, do their shopping all the time. Maybe it's not all over the county, I'm not sure, but the people I've been talking to. Is there a framework where it should be, or is it ad hoc, and is it parish pub politics at play?
I think there's a lot of all of that, to be honest, but there is a plan called Connecting Ireland, and this was launched by the NTA back in 21, and the part of that plan is to connect Ireland, to have much more rural public transport services. And since 21, there have been 150 new or improved services right across the country. And last year they saw on a weekly basis they were getting 100,000 people using the new local link services. It depends on where you are in terms of the frequency of them. But as you know yourself, I was down in Baltimore there recently, and if it's there and it works, it's fantastic. Last month, the Minister did launch a new service on Achill called Unshaw. So basically, it's an app where you go on to, and you can go between 2 different points, book it ahead, and I think the maximum cost is about €3. So that does give mobility for people in Achill, and this is a pilot for a year, but that pilot needs to be rapidly brought out.
Expanded.
But it's an app, and a lot of people in rural Ireland aren't maybe au fait with using their phones and downloading apps and putting in their details on it. Cost is also a big thing in this, Aisling.
It is, and like Brian was saying, there's hidden costs here that you can't calculate. Like, there might be a local link service to your nearest village, but you need the lift to get to the nearest village, to get the bus into the nearest town. It's just as handy to hop in the car if you have a car. And like, it's all of these extra barriers. I think there's not enough, even from a communications perspective. People don't know how to avail of the local link if they're not accustomed to using it. And like, I was speaking to people yesterday who have to cross county boundaries for commuting. Yeah. And because they need to cross the county boundary, they can't use the local link because the local link is in the county and it's not in their area, it's not linked up. And like, simple things like, you know, if you do have a good train service in your county, like there's some counties who don't have a train service.
It's a lot of
okay. But if you have a train service, when you get to the train station, well, there's no bus that automatically meets that train on arrival in most places. You get into the train station and then you walk into the town, or if you get a taxi. So we're calling it Connecting Ireland, and the idea is wonderful, but we're not yet seeing connection across public transport services. And that's a huge barrier for people, especially if you need to get to college on time, get into work on time, and you need to be able to rely on the service. A lot of people will use local link for things like trips to maybe the GP or the local supermarket because you're not at a specific time frame and you've a bit more flexibility. But again, that's if it is in your service, in your area.
On the front of the Star today, we've got a group of people who bandied together to buy their local pub because it was the last one in Kilteely in County Limerick, and they didn't want to lose it, right? We are hearing about towns and cities, we talk about it all the time, the one that we drive through, where there's just nothing left, they've been decimated. But the fact is there are people still living there, Brian. And just hearing about, like, that woman's letter, the loneliness. Community have to step up as well. I understand that. But the government is at the core here because of urbanisation, because of what's happened, because of services that we lost decades ago. It just feels like you get past a certain age and you're forgotten about. That's what it feels like has happened with transport in Ireland. Do you think they can turn this around? And is there a simple fix to make this? She just wants to go to the shop, like...
You would think that there should be a simple fix and that we should be able to provide these both services. There's a research project that we're working on in Trinity in partnership with UCD called Conundrum, and it's all around public transport in kind of rural areas. It's funded by Research Ireland. And what we did in that project is we went and listened for nearly a year and a half to people, what they wanted, what their needs were. And it wasn't only older people, it was people with accessibility issues. All of these people had huge barriers to doing daily things that we take for granted. In that a part of that project, we come up with a new development plan and we worked with Local Link, and you can see that there is that momentum when you co-create with people. That needs to be done an awful lot more.
Listen, of course, we'd love to hear from you at home on this. Please do get in touch with us. That letter last night broke our hearts reading it, and I think, as you say, communities have to step up. Maybe today, call by a local neighbour, check in on them, because I think we all need this, particularly whether you're rural or in urban areas. Brian Caulfield, Professor of Transport at Trinity, and Aisling O'Rourke, the Communications Coach. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, guys. Thank you.
Right, Alan, what's coming up next?
Well, Tommy, up next, it turns out that a midlife crisis are hitting younger than ever. 38% of 20 to 30-somethings say they're already feeling it. We're going to be discussing this after the break.